Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, how to interpret it broadly, how it will affect, how the planetary placements will affect the world, and both this week and this week I'm going to expand a little bit. I'm going to look at um, the world for the New Year's map using the New Year's chart. There are several New Years in that we can use as reference point in predicting the world, and I'm going to focus on the New Year's Eve chart. Right now is December 7th. I'm going to focus on several countries over the next few weeks, but I want to get just an overall perspective on the new year for you folks, and also look at the U.S. chart and look at this week's chart in the immediate future. Uh, One thing I did want to say um, before I go further, if you would like to contact me for a reading or contact me to learn astrology, Vedic astrology in particular, please call me or text me at 508-525-0001. Again, that's 508-525-0001. Okay. You can also email me at Gary Gomes, G as my name, Gary Gomes, the letter G at gmail.com. Okay. So the first thing I did want to reference was that I actually saw when I was wrapping up last week on November 30th, I actually saw a line close to Korea. And as some of you may know, Korea actually had um, a one-day coup, and now the government is being threatened with being taken, um, being replaced. Uh, the other thing that I want to bring your attention to is France. Although I spoke about it last week, France is um, in sort of a shakeup mode. Canada is in shakeup mode. Germany's in shakeup mode. The UK is in a large embarrassment mode. Even China is encountering some problems in terms of its productivity, in terms of internal resistance. But this has been going on for a while in China. The other thing is the United States, as we all know, just had an election in which the sitting party was um, cast out, I guess, for lack of a better word. And we've also had a series of, oh, and by the way, I do want to mention that I did mention there was a line right next to California, Oregon, and Washington, and I believe I said something like could be a storm out at sea, could be something more serious. And there was an earthquake off the coast of California this past week. So I'm going to take those as wins. Obviously, I didn't predict everything that happened, but I, I thought those were significant in terms of the map showing exactly where disruptions would occur. The disruptions in France and Germany have been going on for a while, because essentially, especially in France, after the last election, they've had trouble um, reaching agreement on a prime minister. And um, Macron uh, picked somebody who was essentially not far right enough to be in the far right party, but far right enough to essentially um, not upset the far right party, and far right enough that it upset the coalition, which was on the left, that actually stopped Marine Le Pen's party from gaining a majority. So I thought that was interesting. So a lot of these political manipulations have been um, stopped dead in their tracks. The other thing I want to mention just briefly was the Joe Biden pardon, which really seemed to upset the media immensely. Now, I can understand why Joe Biden would pardon his son. I actually can, to a certain extent, sympathize with that and understand that. But right now, there's talk about, um, but the thing is essentially bothering a lot of people right now is the fact that it's going back to a period um, which I won't say it's suspicious, but it's um, the pardon is going back 11 years in the past, and it's a blanket pardon. So it was essentially the same uh, kind of a pardon that Richard Nixon got, but it extended back uh, far. So essentially, Nixon, for those of you who weren't around at the time, Nixon was given a blanket pardon for any crimes he may have committed by Gerald Ford. It was really one of the things that lost Gerald Ford the presidential race in 1976, or virtually assured that he wouldn't serve it, he wouldn't serve as president. So essentially, that was kind of important. The other thing I want to talk about just quickly was the P. Diddy scandal. And one of the reasons I want to bring that up was because I spoke a lot about religious figures being or belief systems being attacked or hurt. And one of the reasons I'm putting so much focus on that is mainly because, and for those of you who are careful observers, what I'm saying may sound blasphemous, but hear me out just for a second. Um, Basically, we have a society in which entertainers have become essentially our new gurus or teachers. Okay. So those are the people that we admire, those are the people that we look up to. And it's understandable. Those are the people who give us some comfort when things are down. Those are the people that we would love to be like. They're the images we see all the time. They're the people that we're taught to um, admire. And one of the more interesting things I learned from one of my astrology teachers, and again, this is going back hundreds of years, uh, is that essentially actors and entertainers, especially in astrology charts, and also in society in general, were basically considered to be people who couldn't do any useful form of work. Uh, in, in the words of K. and Rao, one of my teachers, uh, actors and entertainers are not considered to be high status people. So there's been this, and again, that's nothing against any particular actor or actress you may like, but they're, um, in the words of one actor, essentially they're highly paid clowns. Now, the message that doesn't negate the message or the reverence with which you may hold an entertainer, a singer, a rapper, an actor, that's not a reflection on you. That's a reflection on what the emotional impact of that particular individual has on you. And that is almost what we would call a devotional aspect. Hello, Brian.
How's mom doing?
Uh, we're not going to go out today.
Okay,
Uh,
tomorrow?
tomorrow probably, yeah. Okay?
Okay. She's not feeling so well today?
No, no, she isn't. Okay?
Oh, okay. Okay, take care.
All right, Brian. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, it looks like I didn't pause that recording, so we got that message. Uh, sorry about that. I'm not going to clean it up, mainly because it's just, oops, hold on a second. All right. So it looks like it continued recording. I tried to stop it, but so you heard the message about my various journeys. Also, so again, that's not criticizing any actor or any person you follow or any person that you live your life according to, based upon your personal preferences. That's your business. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying that uh, this is manifesting in terms of Pisces, which is the planet, which is the sign connected with um, basically spiritual or belief systems, the things we get lost in. And it's also because Jupiter rules it, it's also a sign we receive guidance from. It's sort of like a mystical connection with um, entertainers or escape systems. Pisces was associated in Western astrology with the film industry, mainly because of the Neptunian fantasy part of it. But it does have a very strong teaching aspect to it. So I'm not criticizing anybody who admires um, a a musician or an actor, actress, rapper, other kind of entertainer. But I'm just trying to say why we've been seeing so many scandals in both entertainment and news. So news in the United States chart is in the eighth house of Cancer. It's supposed to be something we trust, but it's also something with Rahu and Cancer, and I'll show you the U.S. chart in a minute. Um, Essentially, it's also something that's supposed to worry us and keep us on edge. And with Rahu over here, there will continue to be many scandals coming out about the entertainment industry and about the news media and about political leaders, because essentially most political leaders, even though they're real people, and God bless them, some of them are decent people. A great many of them are decent people. They're just doing their jobs. Um, there's an element of illusion connected with politics. And I'm not trying to say that to put down politics, but I think everybody inherently knows that uh, politics it's a trading business. So if you want something done, and it's also done to help satisfy, it's done to help people, definitely, but it's also done to help satisfy um, the need for emotional support. And that need for emotional support is connected with cancer in which we have Mars right now by transit and also by Rahu in Pisces. So there'll be a lot of what I would call uncovering of deceptions over the next 6 months at least, and maybe even some trials and tribulations connected with that. It'll get particularly intense over the next year in April. And I'm going to, but this week in particular, because this is this week's chart, it's December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, by the way, just to let you know that. And this will make the masses or society in general just sort of um, upset and needing to find out their own information because the moon and Saturn are conjunct in Aquarius. Venus is in Capricorn. They'll feel more um, trusting of independent sources. The sun is in Scorpio. Again, that distrust of government shows up because Saturn is aspecting the sun. The sun stands for the king in most countries. So that's why we've seen so many problems connected with kings or connected with rulers. They'll go away just a little bit when the sun changes signs in about 10 days, but it'll come back with a vengeance in March of next year. And when Saturn enters the same sign as Rahu, and I think you'll see a lot of changes in governments around the world. Um, Financial systems will be under attack. Pharmaceutical industries will be under attack. And but this is actually, to be honest with you, um, this is not a bad thing. It's bad for feelings of security. That's what it's bad for. But every once in a while, large institutions have to go through some kinds of purges or some kinds of, and when I say purges, I don't mean murders, but some kinds of cleansings in order to make sure they're working properly. Okay. And I think we're going to see that over the next year. And so let's look at this map for this week right now, and we'll go back to this later on. So Rahu sits in the first house. Again, a lot of scandals, a lot of shame connected with the government. Both parties are not, you know, and again, this is also true in England, is also true in France, Germany, Russia, Africa, you know, anywhere you wish to imagine. And Mars is, so this is a general global phenomenon. This isn't isolated to the United States, but the United States is perhaps feeling it more obviously because this is in the United States' fourth house of comfort or or not salvation, sukha, uh, which is the house connected with ease, rest, those kinds of things. Um, so comfortableness. So we're not going to feel comfortable, at least in terms of government, for at least another 6 months and maybe another couple of years. Okay, because Rahu will slip out of the sign in um, late June, but Saturn will stay in the sign for about the next 2.5 years. So so the last time this pattern occurred in the United States chart, which is the Clinton impeachment. So you had a lot of activity. So I'm hoping we're not going to see another Trump impeachment, but you may see some um, attempt at cleansing political environments and also trying to expose political environments over the next couple of years. This is, for those of you who have been following the news, this will be comforting for some of you. For some of you, it will be very uncomfortable. Okay, so I'm just I'm just acknowledging both people's reactions. And this will uh, be active really over the next few weeks because Mars will relitigate previous events. Mars is going backwards right now. And K2's in the seventh house. So there'll be this feeling of detachment and lack of partnership, lack of cooperation in government and finance. Finance looks pretty good over the next week, though, to be honest with you, because we have Venus in the 11th house, and even overseas investments look good. And we also have Jupiter in the third house in Taurus, which is generally not a bad placement for Jupiter. If we look at aspects, the Gemini aspects, Moon is Moon is aspecting Mars, Saturn is aspecting Mars, so that's where those perfectionist traits come from. Jupiter's aspecting Mars, and Mars is aspecting Sun. So Mars is heavily engaged. Mars is really the prevalent planet. Rahu is the obvious planet, which is scandal, but Mars is really the prevalent planet in this chart in terms of what we call Gemini aspects. And it's pretty much the dominant planet, even though it's weak and debilitated. But that's when you see Mars the most. Okay, uh, there's a lot of emotional breakdown and um, lack of emotional clarity when Mars is debilitated. It doesn't mean it can't do some good things, but it's also a really difficult time for people, especially in terms of financial growth. You should see some decline in housing markets or in the expensive houses go down over the next 6 months. But again, that's more of an interest rate thing. In terms of political systems over the next week, um, we have some possibilities of increased war. You know, I have had some people ask me about that, and that's possible. Um, I think with Jupiter affecting Mars, it's not going to be quite so obvious. Saturn aspecting Mars, there'll be a reluctance to act. Um, Venus going into the same house or heading um, into Aquarius and then into Pisces is heading towards its exaltation stage. That makes it look less likely to me for war to actually break out in any meaningful way over the next 30 days. Mid-April would be the time when I think tempers are most high and people will be uh, looking for somebody to hurt. Now, this is a chart for the New Year's. I took midnight Greenwich time. So this is an entirely arbitrary decision. You know, it's not based upon the way Indian astrology evaluates New Year's. And those are Makara Sankranti, which is January 15th, and also the New Year, April 15th. That's when the sun enters Aries. So those are more commonly used New Year's charts than this particular one is. But I found it fascinating that we have K2 in the first house. So there'll be a lot of confusion over the coming year, a lot of interest in change. K2 doesn't like things um, the way they are, but it doesn't know how to change. Rahu's in the seventh house. So again, we have that same, so there'll be new partnerships. Government will be stubborn, so there'll be resistance to change. This is the ninth house connected with government, but there'll be a compulsion to change. So I do think you'll see at least efforts at a lot of cost cutting happening, not only in the United States, but around the world. Okay. And also, this Mars retrograde, and especially aspecting Saturn, but Saturn's in an air sign, so it's not going to do much damage to in terms of earthquakes. But it can be a dangerous time to fly. It can be a dangerous time for storms, especially since Saturn is a windy planet. Uh, and also, one more thing. Although Aquarius is an air sign, it's intimately connected with the water. Okay. So Varuna, one of the main deities of this particular sign, is the god of the waters. He used to be the king god or the primary god. And it's interesting how this parallels certain cultural shifts that happened, maybe not universally, but um, Poseidon was the chief god the uh, of the Trojans, at least according to myth and or legend. And it shifted over to, so in India, it shifted from Varuna, who was the god of the all-encompassing sky, and Varuna became god of the oceans. He essentially suffered a demotion through what was, for lack of a better word, a political coup. And um, Indra took over Varuna's position, at least according to the Vedas. And so Veda's more like a traditional sky god like Zeus um, or those individuals, Zeus, Jupiter, those individuals. And he's also the god of thunder, the god of lightning, the god of so he's essentially like maybe an Indian equivalent of Thor. But basically you had this shift over, and Indra is considered the chief god. But if you have this imagery over here in Aquarius, then you will have some water disasters, like that little water episode we had on the West Coast. It didn't turn into a tsunami, but there were fears of that. Um, in terms of K2 being in the first house, K2 is in a an Earth sign, but it's also aspected by Jupiter. So that could give more earthquakes, more expansion of earthquakes, but again, less damage from them because Jupiter tends to be a benefic planet. It tends to cast benefic aspects. So it can increase the frequency of earthquakes, but it doesn't, at least from my perspective, it doesn't increase the volume. It doesn't increase their damage potential. Mercury's aspecting Jupiter, so there will be investigations into speech or into press in a variety of different countries, not just the United States. And the sun and moon, it'll be a new moon as the year begins. So this indicates major changes or major shifts in government. Saturn and Venus are in the sixth house. Not necessarily a bad combination for financial growth, but there will be some um, adjustments on speculative markets. So again, this isn't necessarily indicative of a recession. That's more indicative after April of this coming year because of Saturn Rahu conjunction. But also, I think you're going to see basically um, fairly slow growth after that, and also at least until June, and also more speculation on unknown assets like crypto will become very fashionable over the next uh, few months or so. I have the last time we saw combinations like this astrologically was when we had the internet boom. Okay. That's why I am really cautious about recommending crypto as an investment. I still think it has a couple of more years to shake out the legitimate investors and the legitimate long term. Do I think it's a positive investment? It probably is. I just think right now is like the riskiest time to get into the market. And it's, so there are crypto houses that have made a lot of money. I'm just inherently conservative about those kinds of things. And also, we're having the advent of cryptocurrencies coming from governments around the world. So I think that makes that market inherently unstable. And there's a big debt issue to be resolved. It's probably the biggest issue the governments will have to face because the Lord of the 12th house, will be debt over the next couple of years. And that's mainly because Saturn's aspecting the first house, and also because of the sun as Lord of the 10th house, Lord of the 12th house, excuse me, in the second house. So I think those are the kinds of things that we're going to be facing. And I don't like highly risky investments. It's just my personality. If you feel comfortable, that's fine. I just think, especially after, um, especially in the months leading up to June, there'll be opportunities for investment in crypto, but just be very, very careful. I wouldn't invest during really for about another 6 months or so. And even then, I do it carefully. Okay. This isn't investment advice. I'm not an investment advisor. You should talk with your portfolio manager if you have any ideas about what to invest in. I still think things like pharmaceuticals, because of the Rahu Saturn conjunction and because of Saturn entering Pisces, we're going to have um, a lot of mental health issues in the society, and also a lot of tempering down of um, expectations over the next couple of years. But I do see the economy getting much better, at least in the latter half of 2025, and especially in 2026. So let's go to the last chart I'm going to look at, and I'm going to look at the US chart just quickly. So again, this is my take in terms of how you want to invest, where you want to invest. That's your business, but talk with people who know more than I do about this. So I think the major thing is the United States is entering what's called, it's the last phase of the 7.5 year period of Saturn, starting in March. It's been through a really difficult period since 2019, roughly, and 2020 in particular. And that was essentially because of the 7.5 year period of Saturn. It's in this phase right now, and it'll enter the final phase in 2000, around March, late March of 2024, of 2025, excuse me. And this is in some ways the most difficult part of the 7.5 year period of Saturn, because it will make money seem tighter for a couple of years. And there's an axiom that malefic planets tend to show their worst results towards the end of a sign. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this will entirely be bad by the time this end of the sign comes, Jupiter's passing um, into Gemini in June. So you'll see an increase in patriotism, and it'll pass into Cancer in 2027, or in 2026, excuse me, 2026 to 2027. And 2026 to 2028 should be very good years for the United States. Overall, from the moon, yeah, 2027 to 2028 should be really, really good. Um, one, two, three. Let's look at the Mahadashas. So we have a Rahu Mercury period happening up until March 27th, 2026. So this is a time of media wars or media misrepresentation. And the reason I say this is because of this Mercury Rahu conjunction in the eighth house. So hidden facts coming out, a lot of hidden information coming out. The Mercury K2 period between March of 2026 and April of 2027 should be a little bit depressing for the United States, to be honest with you, but there should be good monetary opportunities. But one thing I did notice during the last K2 period in the United States was there was a lot of escape from reality, a lot of protests, a lot of rebelliousness, drug use, um, desire for liberation. Now, K2 will be in a different sign during this next phase, and actually it'll be between the ninth and the eighth houses. So that could mean a disruption of communications media. But if we're looking closely at war possibility, Mars won't conjoin with K2 until this. Let me just see now. Mars is changing signs in June, July of next year, so that's 2025. So Mars and K2 really won't come together really until I would say so K2 enters that sign in June, and I'm just guesstimating June. Probably around April of 2026 to September of 2026 will be a dangerous time for a possible war on the part of the United States, and maybe even electrical shutdowns. But I'm thinking that's not going to be anything that's going to destabilize the United States all that much. In terms of the presidency, in terms of the leadership, there is some danger to the president's chart during that same time span. But to me, it looks more like a heart attack than a death, or maybe some other kind of chronic health problem. So I think Trump will actually finish his term. And so I'm not going to predict the next presidential race. It's way, way, way too early. But this will be sort of March 26th to April of 2027. Really difficult time for the United States. A lot of protests, a lot of disruption. So, but again, it's something that has to be done. It's something that has to be cleaned out. So let's go back to this week's chart. And we'll look at the individual signs. The primary thing is Aries is Aries Lord is in the fourth house, is debilitated. Uh, Moon is Lord of that sign. It's with Saturn. So again, there's kind of a feeling of confinement or constraint, although there is some optimism with Saturn entering the 11th house where it does well. Jupiter's in the second house. This does tend to make the sign spend a little bit more money than it should. But again, this is temporary around February, March. Jupiter will go direct and we'll all sort of come to our senses a little bit. Mars is in the fourth house, a lot of family disputes for this sign. And K2's in the sixth house. Have to watch out for illnesses, especially connected with the kidneys the um, or the intestines. Eighth house has Sun and Mercury in the eighth house. Again, that can give some problems with the eliminative organs, and also some problems with governments keeping secrets. Venus is in the 10th house. Saturn is in the 11th house. So overall, a good time for investing for this particular chart. And watch out for unnecessary expenditures. Everybody should watch out for that, but Aries in particular should. So this is April 15th to May 15th. Taurus has Jupiter in the first house. Generally a good sign. It can give some financial growth, but temporary, and some unexpected boons, but also some unexpected health problems to Taurus. So Taurus should be very mindful of his health this year. It should be very mindful of not going out and spending money as soon as he gets it. Mars is in the third house. That's overall is a strong desire to spend with this particular combination. K2 is in the fourth house. I'm sorry, in the fifth house. So some disruption with children. Mercury is in the seventh house along with Sun, and that can give additional communication problems with the relationship partners, and also some misunderstandings about money. Venus is in the ninth house, which is very good for the sign. Saturn's in the 10th. It gives this sign charisma and also authority. Rahu's in the 11th, good for short-term gains. Gemini has no planets in the first house. Its Lord is in the sixth house. So some short-term problems with health. And K2's in the fourth house, some disruptions at home. Mars is in the second house, so some arguments about money, definitely. And sixth house Lord is Sun is, I'm sorry, sixth house Lord is Mars, which is debilitated. So again, some health problems are indicated, especially if you're taking, I would encourage this sign to avoid drugs or alcohol during this next week. I encourage people to avoid that pretty much all the time. But basically, especially for this sign, it'll lead to some chronic conditions which may be difficult to resolve. So maybe getting a little bit addictive. Saturn is in the ninth house along with Moon. That does give some financial growth to the sign. And Rahu's in the 10th house, so it gives some fame and recognition. Jupiter's in the 12th house. So again, there's this problem with trying to think of the best way to say it. There's some problems with losses to relationship partners. For Cancer, Cancer has Mars in it. It's what's called the Raj Yoga Karaka planet for this particular sign. And this is July 15th to August 15th. K2's in the third house, so a lot of courage for this sign. So the Raj Yoga Karaka planet is essentially considered the best possible planet for the sign. For Cancer, it's a paradox because Mars is also debilitated in Cancer, but basically it does indicate some good luck is coming to the sign, but it'll be unpleasant. It'll take you out of your comfort zone a great deal. Mercury's in the fifth house. If Mercury's in the fifth house with the sun, children can be a little bit depressed and a little bit demanding and tough to communicate with. That'll resolve itself by December 20th, I think. So you'll see the sun actually will leave the sign within about 10 days. And around December 20th, Mercury goes direct. So the communication problem should be a bit less of an issue. For Venus in the sixth house, some problems with flus or colds. That's pretty common this time of year. Uh, but also good, it's a good pattern for relationship activity. This sign will get a lot of relationship opportunities this month. Saturn and Moon are in the eighth house. That's generally a good placement for Saturn because it can give inheritances but slow moving. Rahu's in the ninth house. Again, temporary luck is strong. It will lead to temporary gains with Jupiter in the 11th house. For Leo, Leo has Mars in the 12th house, so that does indicate some problems with work and some problems with studies, but overall, that'll work out in the long run. That'll work out okay, but it can't take as long as 6 months to resolve this. K2's in the third house. I'm sorry, it's in the second house. So some confusion about money, some confusion about where to make money. But you can make money out of your home from this combination with Sun and Mercury in the fourth house. And with Venus in the sixth house, again, watch out for flus, watch out for major colds or infections. Saturn is in the seventh house with Moon. It will give attractive or charismatic relationship partners if you're not already in a relationship, or the wife or the husband will start to take more control over things like finances. Rahu is in the eighth house. We've spoken about this before. This is not necessarily a bad placement, gives a lot of interest in occult or metaphysical traditions, but it's not particularly good for luck. So you have to be careful about who you trust. There are people working behind the scenes to subvert you, those kinds of things. If you're aware of that, if you don't fall for some person complimenting you excessively, then you'll be okay. All right. Jupiter's in the 10th. That's very good for career expansion. So that's a good thing. For Virgo, Virgo has K2 in it. I need to take a drink, excuse me. A lot of potential financial growth, desire for financial growth. Venus is in the fifth house. Some good opportunities for speculation for this sign. So if you're a Virgo, this is a good speculative month for you. If you're interested in politics, good political month for you. If you're interested in entertainment, go out and have a ball. But K2 in the first house is usually a little bit confused, can't find direction that easily, and is sometimes ignored at work. So with the Lord of the first house and the third house, there is a strong desire for recognition. It won't come until next summertime, but you will get recognition. Saturn is in the sixth house. So again, that can indicate some problems with legs, but also some problems with digestive systems. Rahu's in the seventh house. It'll give you a lot of opportunities for relationship partners and maybe partners from other countries or other backgrounds. And Mars is in the 11th house, debilitated. So this Mars is, it's good in terms of the signs it rules for this rising sign, so it rules the third house. And Mars rules the third house, and it also indicates better luck coming because of the Jupiter aspect on the Sun and Mercury. If you look over to Saturn in the sixth house again, a lot of hard work, but definitely worth the effort. Rahu's in the seventh, good for potential relationship partner. The Lord of the seventh is in the ninth house. Mars is in the 11th house, so that's good for financial growth, although it is a little bit compromised. For Libra, Libra has the Lord is in the fourth house, so there's a lot of focus on home life and education. Sun and Mercury are in the second house, so this is generally a prosperous period for Libra, but things tend to come in drips and drabs. You won't get everything all at once like you had hoped. Saturn and Moon are in the fifth house, good for gathering more intelligence or information, even if it's a little bit depressing. You'll benefit from it. Rahu is in the sixth house. Some enemies from one's own tribe are indicated here. And let's see now. And if we go to Rahu's in the sixth, we already covered that. Jupiter's in the eighth, good potential for windfalls. Mars is in the ninth. This is a good combination of luck through real estate or through financial risk taking. So while I'm not encouraging Libra to go out and invest um, in things like cryptocurrency, I would recommend they invest in things like real estate or finance, those kinds of things. Okay. Okay. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Sun and Mercury in the first house. That's generally a good combination. Career and gains are tied together. But Saturn's aspecting that house, so it tends to restrict how much money you can expect to actually earn this month. Venus is in the third house, makes this sign go towards attractive individuals. Also, a lot of politeness. Saturn and Moon are in the fourth house. Some, um, this is actually a Raj Yoga combination for the sign. So Saturn rules the fourth house. Moon rules the ninth house. That's um, a good combination for career success, but it will require a great deal of work. For the fifth house, Rahu's in the fifth house will give children desire to experience new things and new friendships and new activities. Okay. Jupiter's in the seventh, generally good for relationship life, although you will find yourself rehashing things over and over again. Um, One thing I didn't mention for Libra is relationship partners will be testy, so I want to go back to that for a second. But for Scorpio, relationships actually look good. They look viable. They look long term. Mars is in Cancer in its fallen signs, and just trying to think. Now so I paused for a few minutes while I was thinking there. So for Scorpio, we have good opportunities for relationships expanding, business partnerships expanding. Mars, the Lord of Scorpio, is debilitated, so there'll be some lack of self-confidence. And K2 uh, is one of the co-lords of Scorpio. Again, you shouldn't trust your friends. Your friends will be quick to criticize you. All right, and so keep that in mind as you're going through this particular stage. Um, Sagittarius has Venus in the second house, so that's good for financial growth. Saturn and Moon are in the third house, good for determination and public charisma. Rahu's in the fourth house, a lot of dissatisfaction with the way things are currently financially. And Jupiter's in the sixth house, which is generally good for financial growth, but it will require a lot of effort and a lot of team building. Mars is in the eighth house. This is not so great. This could indicate some potential loss of money through property or through having to pay uh, additional investments in your house or the property you own. K2 is in the 10th house. So again, not a lot of career recognition, unfortunately. For Capricorn, I've already done Sagittarius, so wealth, um, discipline, disruption at home, um, good guidance, especially about money. And um, I would say the rest of the week, the rest of the month, I have focused on trying to protect to me and mine as opposed to trying to expand outwards. For Capricorn, we have Venus in the first house. I already said that, I think. This is a Raj Yoga for Capricorn. Saturn in the second house, good for financial growth. Rahu's in the third house, good for ambition. Jupiter's in the fifth house. Children will tend to be very talkative and also fact-filled. They'll all do very well in their employment. Um, for Mars in the sixth house, again, be careful about this is the time of seasonal flus, but this aspect or this placement of Mars will go away within a couple of years and then come back again. So it doesn't mean it's full-blown COVID. That's not really the idea. But um, but that Mars being retrograde is not a good position. For for so I was lost in thought for a second there. For Capricorn, some marital discord is indicated. Some arguments with bosses are indicated. Some stalling in career is indicated, but it won't last long. It'll only last about 10 days. For Aquarius, we have Saturn Moon conjunction, um, and that makes this sign more argumentative or more focused on success. Rahu's in the second house. This isn't a bad placement actually for this particular sign. It gives a lot of desire for financial security, and you'll succeed in that particular aspect of your life this month. The next 3 months will be a little bit dodgy financially. After that, you'll feel like you're in control again. K2 is in the eighth house. We have Mars in the sixth house. So again, this can give a lack of uh, ability to handle illnesses or diseases. Kate, who's in the eighth house, can give leg pains or other afflictions to the um, uh, lower back. Um, Sun and Mercury are in the 10th house aspected by Saturn, and that will make the sign very, very, very well known. And Venus is in the 12th house. There's a certain discipline connected with this combination. If Venus is in the 12th house for this particular sign, it tends to do good things, and the sign will be more interested in saving than spending. Finally, for Pisces, Pisces has its Lord in the third house, so it's this desire to gather wealth or good desires to gather security. Mars is in the fifth, debilitated, so financial growth will not be as strongly forthcoming as in after June of 2025. And you have K2 in the seventh house. Relationship partners will seem unusual, temperamental, or even depressed at times. For the Sun and Mercury in the 10th house, this is actually a good placement because it will allow you to be competitive at work. And Venus in the 11th house and Saturn in the 12th is good for overseas investments. Now let's go to the map, and I promise I won't black out on you on this. Okay, let me just see now. All right. So we have a Rahu line. So that scandal is still in action in Hawaii, but it's moving away. It's moving out of public awareness. Um, there's a sun line going over Alaska, and let me just get this out of the way. And a Mercury and Jupiter line going through the same spot. So that could signal an improvement in their economy. There's a Mars and Venus line going through California. Um, Again, California should be really careful about earthquakes or earth changes, especially down near Los Angeles and as well up near San Francisco. Um, so it looks like Oregon and Washington are out of the picture on this right now, but still affected. Also, Utah has, oddly enough, well, this is Nevada, sorry, Nevada and Idaho and Montana have flooding problems, and there's some potential for earthquakes in this belt right here between Utah and Montana. For There's a Sun-Mercury conjunction going over the central states, so North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. Um, I can never remember the name of that state. Kansas, I think it is, and Missouri, um, and Texas. We will have some government scandals or some governmental problems. And the rising sign Jupiter, um, the rising sign, I'm sorry, not the rising sign, Jupiter, the rising sign, going over the sun sign will put a lot of focus on problems with Mexico and also problems with Texas, within Texas, and also problems in, of all places, um, Minnesota and Wisconsin. Okay, so you'll see some additional traffic down there. Um, the moon is going over Arkansas, Indiana, and last but not least, Michigan, parts of Michigan. And that could indicate um, plebiscites or voting habits that were initiated by the people as opposed to one person. Um, Let me just see now. The there are no the only line this near Washington, D.C. is a Rahu line. So this will probably continue to be fallout from pardons, but also fallout from um, the cabinet appointee list, fallout from everything that Trump wants to do in terms of um, minimizing um, the growth of government. And I think I said last week, I I don't think a lot of essential services, if any, will be cut. This is more of a tidying up exercise. Now, keep in mind, they have to, in order to put the economy into a less inflationary cycle, a lot of Republican programs have to come out. And so um, it doesn't look like a bad time. There will be political scandals, though, connected with Washington. This is close by. Also with Florida, North and South Carolina, Virginia, and Cuba, and our friends in Panama. Um, there's a Rahu line going through um, Ecuador, Peru, and close to Chile, not quite there. So again, you'll see some government scandals. There's a Venus line running right through a Venus and a Mercury line, right, and we can put that. Let's see now. Let's go to the rest of the Americas because this is where things stop. So we have a Venus Mars line over Greenland and Brazil, basically. Um, Guyana's close, but not quite on the line. So again, this can bring torrential rainfalls, maybe even destruction of certain parts of Brazil over the next few days. Or so if we go over to the Azores, there's a sun line going through the Azores, close to the Canaries, and close to the Madeiras. And there's also a Mercury line going through there and a moon line. So we probably should be hearing more than normal with that part of the world. There's a Saturn line going through Ireland. Yeah, that's right. The Irish government is in the process of being kicked out too, at least if the polls are any indication. Also, West African countries are hitting some problems with popular acceptance. The Portuguese government's in a little bit of trouble, so is the Moroccan government, as far as I can tell. And we have these lines going through Scotland, England, and Ireland. Okay, so um, for there's a Rahu line encompassing England, a Rahu Saturn line encompassing England, Norway, Denmark, France, um, Spain, and also our friends in the north of Africa, uh, Libya. So I'm thinking we're going to see some governmental scandals break out in that parts of it, or either that or even some out and out rebelliousness happening in those countries. So demonstrations all the way from England to um, Germany and a little bit past it into Norway and also in South America. So I'm sorry, in Africa. My apologies. They're very different, aren't they? In Africa. And also heading down to um, the coastal colonies, the former coastal colonies of Portugal, um, I believe it's Mozambique and Angola, with this Rahu line, and also threatening South Africa just a little bit. There are these Mars-Venus lines running through, so we can expect some political violence in Germany or in Denmark. And let's see now, we have, um, yeah, so that Rahu line is pretty dominant going through most of Africa. That's going to be interesting. So a lot of scandals coming out of Africa, and maybe not committed by the Africans themselves. Just saying that with a nod and a wink. Um, for you know, for there's a Rahu line going over Italy, Algeria, parts of Niger, and even hitting on Nigeria a little bit, or approaching Nigeria. So again, those countries will have some major institutional problems. For the Mercury and the Mars and, well, yeah, he just made a planet. The Mars and Venus lines running through um, Eastern Europe, Turkey, Greece, um, possibly some flooding, possibly some earthquake activity. But I'm not looking at it as being very major. And if we get down into Egypt, it's passing through that country, it's passing close to Sudan too, and close to Ethiopia. So it's really kind of a problem, a fighting problem in those countries. Um, let's see, the next big line we encounter is a moon line. So there'll be a moon Mars line encompassing the conflict in the Ukraine and also Iran and also Israel. So this is actually somewhat promising because it does give the potential to alleviate war or alleviate tensions. That's being worked back. I think you saw over the past week. So the ceasefire was already not dead, but it was already being questioned like 48 hours. And so the actual declaration was a ceasefire. But I think with this moon combination and with this Venus combination encompassing Mars or closing in Mars, it'll help stop um, certain aggressive activities and help um, slide rock up one more. I'm sorry, it might help slide the um, the opposition up one more point, but it really won't change anything. Um, so again, possible peace negotiations will, but really while fighting will continue in a lot of these places. For let's see now. Let me shrink this down again. Sorry. So if we go over here, let me just reduce the map a little bit more. So if we go over to India, there's a Moon Saturn line passing through India. We should expect India to be heavily featured in the news. Jupiter Saturn line, some economic hardships. Mercury line, some suppressed communications coming out of India. Um, Iran is essentially, it looks stymied for now. And so are Pakistan and Afghanistan. Um, Bangladesh and Ladakh may actually be experiencing a little bit of a recovery now, but it'll be slow. And again, the potential for flooding is very high. Um, Rahu is passing through Cambodia, Thailand, um, Khmer is Cambodia, um, Myanmar, and let's see now, and China itself. So that's going to give some disruption to their economy, some anxiety connected with their economies, and it's also passing through Malaysia and Malay, I believe it is, and also into Indonesia. Um, so again, those countries, although they're very strong and vital economies, will have some dips over the next few months. And we have a Venus line running through um, Korea or close to Korea and Japan and down through Central Australia. That to me indicates a lot of financial growth for that particular part of the world, and also some problems with representative government, and also some hostility towards reforms the representative government wants to bring forward. So this could be sort of a tax crisis in Japan or a resistance to changing the system they know so well. And the same is true for Australia and New Guinea. For the rest of the world, just after Australia, we have Mercury and Jupiter line passing over um, the east coast of Australia. And after that, that's about it. So New Zealand, let me just say, New Zealand does have a Saturn line passing through it. That is usually indicative of some kind of financial fallback, and there's a moon line passing through it or close to it as well, which should give it some increased um, attention to that. Uh, it's questionable how much attention New Zealand would have gotten in the COVID epidemic had they not had such a low rate, and also in a non-traditional prime minister. But it is what it is. We will be hearing more about New Zealand this week. Okay, so that's it for me. Um, I've had all I had to say. I could probably say more, but I know you want to all get back to your lives as they are. And if you have any questions, please call me. My 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 email, my phone number is 508-525-0001. You can text me at that number, or you can email me at garygomesg@gmail.com. So that's it for this week. I love you all. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this communication, ring the notification bell, and you'll be advised as to when these videos come out. And that's all I have to say for today. I love you all. Be careful out there, especially driving. It's kind of a dangerous time of the year to drive anyway, especially in the United States. But Mars and Cancer is going to make people a bit more hostile with their behavior than normal. So just be advised of that. Doesn't mean you have to be in the house like a victim. It just means just be careful when you're traveling. Okay, so that's it for me. I hope that's it for you. And we'll see you next week. And again, like I said, I love you all. Thanks so much for watching. I did get a lead on doing some AI so you can translate my words into other languages, which sounds fascinating. So I might use that in a couple of weeks. Okay, so that's it for this week. Until next week, I'll see you. Until next week, goodbye. See you later. And everyone, be prosperous, be happy, be careful, be successful. Okay, don't worry. Bye, everyone.